welcome to What About Indie Games. We're going to be talking about indie games and lots of things to do with indie games. This is episode 0. We're kind of trying to see how this all show works. So comment some stuff if you want. And yeah, how are you? Welcome to the show, Renee. Could you tell us about yourself so everyone knows about why you are the indie game expert that you are?
I wouldn't say I was an expert. Just a very big supporter of indies. So essentially I'm a freelance journalist who works primarily with player2.net.au. I have also written for Kotaku, and especially in regards to things like Final Fantasy XIV and indies in particular. But yeah, I've always just really liked indies for some reason.
Yeah, that makes sense. Everyone probably knows me. I just make indie games. And so I thought this would be like a really nice dynamic of having people that are on both sides of the fences, one from the playing side and one from the like journalism side, and kind of come together and we can discuss how indie games actually work. And I can maybe say why I don't like them and you can say why you do like them or whatever. So to start off, we always argue about what an indie game is. And I've changed my tune on this somewhat over the years. I was really against people making indie games or calling themselves indie games that weren't indie games. Where do you sit on this subject?
Dave the Diver is not an indie game. Let me just get that off the bat. I think that the lines are so much more blurred than they used to be, especially because there seems to be different tiers of indie game now. For example, I would say Hades is a top tier indie game because they are still technically independent, but they're also at that point where their stuff is branching into kind of getting into the lower tier of, I'd say, big publisher games. So almost like when big publishers kind of dip their toe into indies, that's the level that they're at, maybe even a bit above that. They tried to define it with the Triple I showcase on Steam, but the thing is they had things like Brotato in there as well, and it's like, you are not really defining what Triple I is. It's supposed to be high quality indie games, and you've got some stuff there that isn't really high quality indie games. I mean, I'm not saying that some of your other games are...
Well, did that game make it because it was selling a lot of copies? Like, did they put that in a Triple I indie game because it was so popular? Is that what made that an indie game?
They didn't say, and that's the thing. Like they specifically said on the thing that it was supposed to be like indie games with high production values.
Oh.
But then they had a lot of the games were like, oh, this is an indie game, and I was looking at it and I'm like, this one's not really suited to this. I don't know why they've added this. Like it's like they tried to define it and then failed at defining it, or they tried to define it and they made their parameters too thin, and so they added so many more not like high production ones. Like I would say like Hades and stuff is the like kind of Triple I.
Well, see, where I got confused with indie games, and I think it can be still confusing, is you have games like Hades, right? Or Stardew Valley, and that starts off as an indie game. And then all of a sudden, they're making way too much money to be a technical indie game anymore, because all of a sudden that company is funding itself. That company can pay their wages, and them guys are fine. So even though it started as an indie game, then it became not so much an indie game. And that's why I've kind of changed my perception of this to having, maybe it's the indie vibe more so than the actual game itself, where it's actually been made from. So I'm kind of shifting towards that more and more these days. That's an indie game. Like, I kind of don't care if Dave the Diver is known as an indie game, because then my game that's an indie game is put next to Dave the Diver, which is a pretty fantastic game, and you're going, oh, these two games are pretty cool, you know. So it kind of brings the level of indie games up a little bit, I guess, from that point of view. But then when you're
The
going,
thing is that I was going to say, even though they're making a lot of money, they are still doing it on their own. So they're not really relying on a big publisher to back them up. And the reason why I say Dave the Diver is not an indie game is because they are owned and they didn't have to make sacrifices in their game. They probably were like, we wanted this, and they could put it in. Whereas if someone else who was making an indie game, if they were like, I want it fully voice acted, and it's like, well, I can't afford to do voice acting for all of it, so I might have to do what they did in my brain has forgotten what it's called. I keep wanting to say Braid, and it's not Braid. Bastion, and just hire the narrator because that's the only thing we can afford, which is why that happened.
yeah,
So I feel like in a way, it's not so much about Stardew Valley is a very interesting one because for him, it's definitely not about the money. He just genuinely enjoys working on his game, and he just I think even if he wasn't making bucket loads of money, he'd still be adding to it and updating it. I mean, it's not an expensive game by any stretch to buy, and you get so much content.
yeah. Well, to me, where I define indie games is when you're going to apply for things. So if I'm going to go and get a grant for my game, then I've got a publishing company, obviously then I'm not an indie game. But if I'm going to get a grant for my game and I don't have a publishing company, then I'm allowed to be called an indie game. I think in different contexts, that's where you kind of have to define it based on where the publisher's involved or not. Because there are some games that are on Steam and they might have a publisher, but a lot of these publishers do not do anything for these indie games. They're just basically taking their cut and they're not really promoting it. They're not giving the indie developer any money. There are some that give money, but there's another whole heap of them that don't even help the indie developer. They're just trying to add a catalog of games together, and it's not really becoming not an indie game in that regard as well.
I guess at that point, it's kind of like, do you consider is an indie someone who doesn't have a publisher or not? What if they're an independent publisher? So it kind of makes it a really hard kind of, as we were saying on the Pixel Cast, do you need both to be considered truly indie? Is there it seems to be like there are different tiers. Sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
It seems like there are different tiers, and no one's trying to really assign those tiers anything. So they're sticking them all under the one title, which is indie.
That's right.
That's where I think a lot of the confusion's coming from.
Oh yeah, 100%. You always have all these people that are. I think there needs to be other tiers, but there should be garage dev. I've always said this for years. Like anything on itch is pretty much garage dev. Basically, there's one or two guys garage dev, and they're making a game that looks like it came from a garage. I guess that's the best way to say it. And then you've got your indies, and then there needs to be that tier in between indies and everyone's triple-eyed. I don't think that really works, and I don't think that's where the problem is. That there needs that I think some people call them A games, or that doesn't even sound cool. And if you call them B games, no one wants to put that on their game. So it needs like a cool name in between those two tiers that people are like interested in calling their game that.
I'm not sure if you know the answer to this, but why do we even call them AAA games?
I don't know. I think it's because they're really, really, really good. A games doesn't sound really good, does it?
When you think about it, AAA doesn't mean much. Does that mean that we now are going to assign like S games and A plus games and
B plus,
A minus games, B plus games?
I don't know.
And then you've got all the way down the bottom, you've got like F games, which are the ones that barely run.
They failed.
They failed.
Yeah, I think that's a good question, but it's what sounds cool and people can enjoy, and then you've got on the
In
other
other words, it's just marketing jargon.
basically, yeah, but because like other games, cozy genres, puzzle genres, but there's all these other genres that are making such a big thing now in the game industry that don't even identify themselves as an indie game anymore. They identify themselves as I'm a farm sim game, and I wouldn't even say that I'm actually an indie game anymore. I'm just a farm sim game. I'm not trying to. I think an indie game sometimes too has to have a little bit of originality to it. Like Dave the Diver has got that in Bucket Loads. I mean, that's our one that we kind of go back to. It's this weird test case. So
I think the reason why I have such a big issue with it is just because the developer didn't disclose that they were a part of like a massive company. And I think that to me, that's the thing that really frustrates me is that they used people's assumption that they were an indie game by the way it looked to kind of be considered.
they won
I think
awards
that they're
too.
going to have to change it.
Yeah, they.
Yeah, the awards.
I think that's where another case where it has to be defined properly because you shouldn't be
Yeah.
able to apply for them awards if you've got a publisher. That's where I think that the other part of it should come into it. The awards
Well, I was going to say
people.
maybe they should split it into the best independent developer, best independent publisher.
Yeah. Well, for example, I'm if I apply for a booth at PAX, for example, they have a criteria. I can't have a publisher for certain aspects of where if I want to join the indie kind of part of it. And
Yeah.
so maybe we're holding the wrong people accountable. We should be holding the award ceremonies accountable because if they actually made sure that these were indie games, then they couldn't win these awards and that wouldn't piss everyone off and like that would solve all the problems.
Yes, but Jeff Knightley also said that Death Stranding was an indie game.
It is independent.
It is, but it's big production. Like it is a massive, massive production. I don't think there's going to be many independent games where they can afford Norman Reedus.
No, but I feel like you need to, for an indie game, it has to be defined to on the studio size. So once you go over 10 people or say 8 people, that's where the number that just, you're not an indie no more because you're paying for your own production. You are independent, but you're still paying everyone comfortably.
So we're essentially going with indies and rich indies.
Yeah, maybe R indies.
Rindies.
That's perfect. That would solve a lot of problems. But yeah. So I feel like we've cleared that up properly now and everyone can sleep at night. Have you got any more to
Everyone's
add
going
on
to
that?
listen to us change the entire scape of gaming just because we've nailed it down here.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything in Australia goes global. You should know that by now.
Actually, another way you could describe them is self-sufficient indies.
It's, if that doesn't sound cool, it's got to sound cool. It's got to sound like
Yeah, I
something
was
you
going
want
to say you could call them SSIs, but then I was like, that sounds too close to SSRIs, which is medication.
to, or SS. It sounds like one of those things that you get from sleeping with the wrong person also. So,
An STI.
yeah. That's
You
getting
slept
into
with too many good indies and now you have SSI.
oh, imagine if that was an achievement. Like how many people would be trying to get that? But yeah. Um anyway, so how about we talk a little bit about what games have you got games you're playing at the moment or do you want to go with games that got you into indies? Where do you want to go with this?
I think we'll go with games I'm playing at the moment because
Okay.
Steam's Farming Next Fest just finished.
Oh.
And I have been playing a bunch of demos, as well as Botany Manor, which is kind of, I would say that it is an indie, but it's also one of the ones that is got fairly high production values.
Mm-hmm.
But the team is only, like, I think there's only 5 people in the team. So it's still, fairly small. Yeah.
It got onto Game Pass
guess.
too, this game, so I haven't played it as yet.
Yes.
What's a game about? Throw us into that.
All right, well, it's a very I'm writing a review for it for player2.net.au, and I'm like, how do I put this into words? It's essentially a really good puzzle game. First and foremost, the whole idea is that you need to make flowers bloom or plants grow, except they need very exact conditions to make them grow, and you need to discover what the conditions are through clues that are littered throughout the mansion, the manor. That's where the Botany Manor comes into it, to make the plant grow. And as you fill out the book, more and more areas of the manor open up, allowing access to new seeds and new plants and new puzzles to solve. They're really clever. I like the fact that the puzzles were obviously the main focus of the game. There is a bit of a story happening in the background, but it's like snippets, like, for example, you pick up pieces of paper that are in the rubbish bin that you can read, and it says things like there's marriage proposals, because it's set in 1890, and the person who you're playing as is, I think she's in her 50s or 60s, but she's always wanted to be recognized for her botanical knowledge, but everybody kind of dismisses her because she's female. So the story is kind of interwoven into it doesn't overtake the puzzles. It's not like it's a story first and puzzles have come last. It's very much the puzzles are the main focus and the story is just kind of there. So as you're looking for clues, you'll obviously discover the story, but it's not kind of really thrown at you sort of thing. It's just there. And I really like that about it. I like the fact that it wasn't like that, because generally some games where a lot of the puzzles are kind of very similar to each other, and then you've got ones that are like Resident Evil where they're just ridiculous.
I love Resident Evil. Yeah, I know what you're saying though. It seems like it's a little bit like alchemy or those kind of things where you've got to combine the right things to do the thing. Like you could make this into a wizard.
Things have to be done in the right order, and
you could make the kind of whole thing as like a wizard type of game where you had to make a spell just to open that door by combining things in the right order. So, but they've gone with this whole wholesome plant thing, because a lot of people nowadays like the idea of growing plants, but hate actually growing them because they kill them. So I think the next step is to go to video games and grow plants in an artificial
and
world.
look, growing plants really is a lot of work,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot of time and effort. And while some people do genuinely enjoy it, obviously it's some people, they want to do it, but they just don't have the time, the money, or the effort, or the space. That's another thing that's an issue. It's almost like you can kind of... It's a very relaxing kind of puzzle game. That's what I found. That was probably the thing that I got from it the most, was that it was just something that I could sit down, use my brain a bit, but not really be like frustrated or angry or anything like that. I just found that sometimes I got stuck at one point, and I probably would have liked some hints, but they don't have hints in the game.
Mm-hmm.
You only get the clues that you find as you explore the manor, and that's it. And it turned out it was one area that I had managed to explore around and miss. Yeah, it's not hard to do. Like in a lot of games, you'll occasionally come up with that.
I think I'm interested in the game. I didn't. Okay, for me, I didn't play it because I thought it was more of a farming game. I didn't get that it...
Oh, it's no farming.
Yeah, I know, but I didn't get that it was actually a puzzle game from the video, the trailer. To me, the trailer kind of suggested it was more of a farming game or a kind of something like that type of game. So I just like, but now that now you've sold it to me because I like the idea of the puzzles and that in it. So yeah,
And they're
I'm
really inventive puzzles. Like they're not your cookie cutter puzzles that a lot of people would expect from a puzzle game. So a lot of the ones where, they're like, oh, it's a puzzle game, and the puzzle is go find a key and put it in the right lock.
oh yeah.
And you're like, that's real hard.
Hmm.
Or they're like, slide some tiles. No, it's about making the exact thing. So for example, the very first plant seed that you get requires a specific temperature to make it grow. So you have to try and find out what the temperature is, and by doing that, you have to find out where the plant is located, what's the general temperature in that area, and stuff like that to make the plant grow.
Is it
Like it's
is it actually like hard or like it seems hard when you explain it like that, but is it hard or like then you say it's easy, like how have they made it so it's not so hard, I guess the question is.
the game is very linear and it's very good at pushing you in the right direction. It also has things where it'll give you slight musical cues. So if you are headed in the right direction, so for example, I'm going to spoil it a bit. For that first flower, there's a heating vent that you have to place the pot in front of. Mm-hmm. And when you open up the heating vent, there'll be a little musical cue, like do 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 do, and it's saying to you, yes, use the heating vent, but you've got to set the temperature of the heating vent to the right temperature to make the flower grow.
Oh, I see. That makes sense. So is it a little bit like an escape room kind of thing where you've stuck in one area until you solve that plant to get through the next to get to the next area kind of thing?
Yes and no. It is at the beginning,
Yeah.
but I also found that luckily that they generally what they did is they kept the clues to certain plants in certain areas. Otherwise, because the thing is that once you pick up a clue, you would expect it to then be in your inventory and you can check it. There's no inventory, so you can't do that. You actually have to physically go back to the room. The book does list the clues and where they were found, so you can physically go back to the room and read them. But yeah, sometimes you end up going back and reading. Was it this one? Was it this one? Was it that one over there? Oh no, I've read this same story section 4 times and I'm a bit sick of it.
Now I see. Yeah, no, I know it's I think they really missed on the trailer though because I I did not pick up. What did you think of the trailer? Did you see the trailer and just think it was more of a walking sim, or what did you know about the game?
I The only reason I knew about it because I played the demo during Steam's Next Fest
Ah, okay.
because I was checking out a whole bunch of the so like if it's a when they had the really big Next Fest, right, like the first one, I checked out a whole bunch of the games in case any of them were stuff that I could do videos on. So I was checking them out, and Botany Manor was one of the ones I was checking out, but I found that when I was playing it on the PC, it was making me feel motion sick. I was really enjoying it, but it was giving me a headache, which would then require me to lay down for a couple of hours to wait for the headache to kind of dissipate.
Yeah.
So when they offered it on Xbox One, I have less issues with consoles. So I was like, absolutely, I'll review it because I enjoyed what I played during Steam Next Fest.
Yeah, I think that's the same as The Witness did that for me. I think there's something about low poly graphics and being in a first person view. It seems to easily make you get headaches for some reason. If you're susceptible to them, you'll get them guaranteed almost with especially low poly, less texturing and all that kind of stuff.
It's not that for me. I have issues with. I don't just suffer from sim sickness. I also suffer from motion sickness. So a lot of games can make me unwell. It seems to be something to do with uneven frame rates. For example, I have to use frame rate limiters.
Ah.
Field of view also helps, and a few other things. But essentially, yeah, if the frame rate's a bit jumpy, I can't play it. It will absolutely make me unwell very quickly.
Oh, frame rate. Okay. Now I've learned something today. I will make sure my
I don't know if it works for anyone else, but it's an issue for me. For example, when I first played Final Fantasy 14, which pretty big game, I had to I had to down the settings and limit the freight to 60 frames per second so that I could play it. If it wasn't at that steady 60 frames per second, I would start to get a headache.
Well, that is just, yeah, I've never heard of that before. I always get it from the low poly games that are first person. They always give me a headache. So that's what I thought you went through, that kind of part. But yeah, this is something new for me.
No, no, I have a lot of things that make me unwell, and like I know what you're talking about. Like I can't play Doom. I can't play any of the ones that are inspired by Doom because I don't know if it's the frame rate or something. It just seems to be too quick, and my head just can't handle it. Even just watching the trailers makes me feel unwell.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, let's not do that any, like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, when the FPS Next Fest was on, I was like, I don't know if I should be doing this. I ended up playing System Shock, and I was like, I'm really enjoying this game, but it is giving me a massive headache, so I only played the demo twice.
That comes out soon. Also, that's not an indie game. So, did you?
No, that wasn't for the indie thing. It was just like the Steam Next Fest
Yeah.
that had a whole bunch of different FPS games, and unfortunately, all the indie ones I can't play because they would give me a headache.
It's fair. You said something about the farming next fest.
Yes.
What makes a good farming game? Like, to me, they're all the same. But what do you look for in a good farming game?
That's really hard because a lot of them are branching out. So I downloaded 26 demos, but I've only played 10 so far.
Yeah.
And the thing is that the farming Next Fest, it wasn't necessarily just farming games. It was anything that had kind of farming in it.
Okay.
So, for example, one of the what is it? One of the games called The Wandering Village, which was I did quite enjoy, but that's more of a city builder. But it had farming in it, so it featured in the farming Next Fest.
Okay.
But it also is kind of, that one's very interesting because you're actually on the back of a living creature. You're living on the back of a living creature.
Oh,
and
I've played that. Got heaps of funding from Kickstarter. It got like something like
Did it?
$90,000 or something like that. It was a lot. Maybe it was $1 million. It was a lot of money. Like it was.
It doesn't like it.
I know, but it was really, really popular. It's definitely that one. Because
Because
everyone
everything
loves
you do,
like the village
yeah.
idea, moving. Yeah. So
And the thing is, everything you do kind of affects the creature that you're on as well. So essentially, when you do farm, you are farming. Sometimes you'll be farming food for the creature as well. So I'm like, that's kind of interesting, but it's also not really a farming game. I would classify that as a city builder, but I understand why it was still kind of in there.
did you like that game? Because I found it well and truly too overcomplicated for what it should have been.
To be honest, I only really get to spend an hour of each demo because obviously I'm trying to get through as many as possible.
Yeah.
But what I did play, I did like. I
Yeah.
didn't get to the point. I think I'd only gotten to the point where I think it's called an ondo. The creature just woken up
Yeah.
and defecated.
Perfect.
But I didn't get to actually spend any time with the creature, so I don't know. Once that comes into play, I don't know how much it adds to it. So I didn't mind it. It wasn't my favorite game that I'd played so far, but I definitely didn't hate it. I
Yeah.
probably wouldn't buy it, but I wouldn't be against playing it longer to see if it is something that I would truly love or something that I would just go, after a while.
Makes sense. Yeah, like I said, it got a massive Kickstarter thing. So it was like one of the
I did
highest.
send it to a friend who
Okay.
likes that sort of stuff, and he's enjoying it. So,
Okay.
um,
So it's a good game. Did you play the light? Lord, I forget what the name is. It's a light. It's where you're in this big Titan type robot and you're farming. Light.
Lightyear Frontier.
Yeah. Did you play that?
I played that during Steam Next Fest and immediately put it on my wish list.
I did play that the other week, and it's okay. There's some things I dislike about it, but there's some things I really liked about it.
I like that there's that hint towards something interesting being on the planet, and that I want to find out what it is. That
Oh,
story side of it.
I like the whole walking around in the Titan and doing everything, and that was super fun. I just didn't like the building mechanic in it when you have to place something down and it has a placeholder, and then you have to hold down the button again to build it. But then if you missed the button to build the placeholder, it would throw you out of the Titan. So if they fix that, I'd be in. But that just one mechanic.
It is in early access,
Yeah.
so hopefully they will fix it. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, it's on early access on PC, I think, and also on Xbox.
Yeah, it's on Game Pass.
Game Pass.
Yeah.
So I think that once they have more of an idea of what they're doing, they're going to hopefully they'll fix it. But I did like what I saw of that. I put it on the wish list and was like, I can't afford it I probably won't be able to afford it forever, thanks to a certain four-legged black dog.
I'm assuming that's your black dog, but yeah. Okay.
Yes, she has a bad habit of eating seatbelts, and then I have to replace said seatbelts, and they are not cheap.
I guess is it cheaper than replacing if she was into eating Xboxes or something like that? I feel like that's almost more affordable.
I got two replaced last week, and it cost $800.
Oh, wow. You could have bought another Xbox.
Yeah. I don't have an Xbox Series X, and that's part of the reason why. So, Microsoft, if you're listening, I could use one.
Yes, that's okay. Okay, so what other?
I'm sure they're listening to this indie podcast.
100%. What about the indie games Xbox? What other games did you see on the Next Fest that was the farming one?
There was a lot of really different ones. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Immortal Life, because it is a Chinese-based farming game, which you're like, aren't so many of them based in China? But no, this is based on like a farming game that's based in a martial arts sect that has been ruined, and you're trying to rebuild it by farming. And because it's a martial arts thing, people can use superpowers and stuff. You get a special item that essentially creates a small rain cloud that you can control to water the plants. So you don't have to just go around and water each individual plant. You just summon a rain cloud and, tell it to water the plants.
So it's like Mortal Kombat makes some farming simulator or something like that.
It's probably more like, I'd say it's a cross between Naruto, which is Japanese because they do the hand symbol thing. Mm-hmm. There's cultivation, which I know is common in Chinese manhwa. I'm not sure if I don't think I've seen any games that really have it up in many Chinese games, but I know that so cultivation is generally when you meditate and you make your inner spiritual power more powerful, essentially. And I just thought that was a really interesting take on it, because it took something that everyone would know and kind of turned it on its side by introducing all these things that people may not be exposed to. That's the word I was looking for.
It sounds super interesting to me, but again, I'm learning to like farming games, but yeah, I've only found one that I loved, but we can get to that later.
Which one was that? Okay.
No, we can, but it's fine. The one now I've got to remember the name. Okay, I'll think about it and I'll get back to you.
Well, but yeah, what I'm finding so far is that all of them are very similar, but they seem to be doing one thing fairly different. Like they've taken one thing that makes them different and kind of they're focused on that. So for example, Immortal Life is focusing on the Chinese culture aspect of it.
Yeah.
With the one I was playing this morning, that's actually an Irish game that was funded by Irish Screen, Paleo Pines, where you have dinosaurs. So dinosaurs help you farm. and they help you like destroy rocks and things. You have
It's
pet dinosaurs, yes.
so it's Ark joins into a farming sim.
Yes. But it has this really cute storybook style, and I think, well, kind of like a toy. They look kind of like toys. I don't know how else to explain it. And I've noticed that some people have an aversion to a farming game that has a different style. Like I've noticed that. So I'm like, I personally, I'm happy to give anything a chance and see if I like it. I find the styles will generally either grow on me or actually no, I think they've all pretty much grown on me. So
I think you have
yeah,
to have
but I think
different
that
styles, otherwise they just yeah.
yeah. So what was it? I played. There was two that I played, and they were both two D characters on a 3D background, but they were both the way they had approached it was different for both of them,
Okay.
which then made them unique in their own way. And it's just like if we didn't have that sort of thing, people would yeah, people would just find it really boring because unfortunately like a lot of them the only thing that's separating them is their story and their characters and their setting. A lot of them are very similar. Like I said, Paleo Pines has dinosaurs, so that's what sets that apart. Immortal Life is set in China, in a Chinese martial arts sect. It also has combat stuff. Another one that I looked at was another one that I actually quite enjoyed was, which I think was an Epic exclusive actually, because it said if I asked me if I wanted crossplay,
Oh,
and they, sorry,
I said, oh, Epic exclusive. That
uh,
I haven't heard them terms for a long time.
yeah, I think it started off as an Epic exclusive, and then they opened up to Steam as
Oh,
well.
okay. What was that one called?
That one was
Sorry.
really
Okay, say that.
Ikane Island, an Earthlock adventure.
Ikane
That's
Island,
right,
an Earth log adventure.
Earthlock.
I so it's basically a farming game, but it's now a bit more story driven. Is that what you're trying
It's
to say?
less of a farming game, and I'd say it's more of an adventure game, but with farming elements, rather than saying it's a pure farming game.
Okay, so that might be something that I might like more because the game that I liked the most was Stranded Sails. You
Ah, okay, yep, yep, yep.
that and so it's similar to that. I guess that it's similar idea where there's a farming element in it, and you need the food to kind of do some stuff, but that's not the main thing you're
Yeah.
doing. You're more going on
Essentially,
adventure.
food is healing. I think it's mostly healing,
Yeah,
and and because of the because it has a certain special element on on the island, it's rich in a certain mystical power. The stuff grows quickly, so you're not waiting multiple days for stuff to actually grow.
yeah, I see. That makes
Sorry.
sense. No, that's all good. So you've played more games than I've played lately. I haven't done many. I've only been thinking about playing Dave the Diver again. That's about me. But
Like I said, the Farming Fest is on. There's a couple I played, like Snacko Island. That was one of the two D characters sprites on a 3D background. That one was kind of interesting as well. That one is about an island that's been covered in that's supposed to be cursed and covered in a miasma, and two kittens decide to go there because they hate their day jobs.
yeah, okay.
We're like, we saw this cursed island on the TV and we're sick of our day jobs. Why don't we go sail to it?
Well,
Totally normal
y-
reaction.
you know what the next fest, well, not the next fest, but the next festival.
The next fest.
No, 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 not the next fest. The next fest. Okay, will be on Steam.
No, I don't know what the next one is.
Uh,
I haven't checked. Is it the?
Endless Replayability Fest.
Oh.
So that's just going to be all your roguelikes. It's just going to be roguelike central, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm just like, I got to get through all the farming ones before that starts up.
I feel like you're more into the farming ones than the roguelikes kind of thing. That's starting. Yeah,
Roguelike?
that's going to be next week and next weekend. So you've got a little bit of time.
Oh, Jesus. It's only next weekend.
Yeah.
I still haven't gotten through all the demos yet for the farming one. And that's the thing, like, I'm lucky that they kind of keep them up, because a lot of the time, like, I think the farming fest was not even a week. It was like,
No, they go.
or it was
They go
just
for
a
about
week.
5 days by the looks of it. There's one every 2 weeks, basically from now till December.
So much for having a break at some point.
Just so, yeah, just so you know where we're at with them. But
I'm gonna have to keep pumping out video.
no pressure.
Yay! No pressure. I definitely haven't been. I've finished. I'd finally finished all the Sage ones, and I'm moving on to the Game Expo ones. Today was going to be the day I was going to start on them.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully that'll go up soon. I need to find out who got Player's Choice on the Saturday. I've got to try and find out, because you got Sunday, yeah.
I know who
Or
got
Lays
play.
World
I
got
know.
Sunday.
I know who got Saturday. Do you want me to tell?
Okay.
I can just tell you. It's
Yeah, that'd be helpful, just so I can stick a thing on, like. So the video that I'm making that's going over the indies.
it was Footy Bash.
No, it was Footy Bash. I had a feeling it was Footy Bash, but then I was like, I'm not entirely sure, and I don't want to say yet. I don't want to like stick a sticker on there and find out that I was wrong.
Yeah, no, it was them. Because I talk to them all the time, so we always compare each other's notes and annoy each other. So it's quite funny.
I do like how the Aussie indie community is quite tight knit.
Well, he just made an arcade thing for his game, so he can. And
I saw that.
I'm trying to convince him to take it to PAX. I said you'll get heaps of people come over and play it.
You totally should.
Yeah,
Just stick it in the I think the arcade area or the free play area.
That's what I told him. That's what I told him to do, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know." So I'm trying to convince him at the moment to take that over there, but yeah, it's not. He hasn't finished it yet, so I think he'll decide after he finishes. But it could be cool. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think people will like that, and especially because it's essentially another booth as well. So he could easily just kind of just put that in the free play area, and essentially just
more eyes on the game. I think that
QR code on there.
It's if you don't know about Footy Bash, it's this game that focuses around Australian football. But really, Australian football, or AFL, is kind of more focused to the Melbournes, and kind of not even all of Australia is obsessed with Australian football. So the market share is kind of, I don't know how they're going to go when they release worldwide. It could be something that the rest of the world might just go, oh, this is super cool, or it's interesting, I think, from my point of view. I'm like, oh, could be like just sold in Melbourne.
There has to be something there, because they've been releasing AFL games for years.
Oh, I know.
I wonder if there is.
But do they only sell in Australia?
There's a lot of American YouTubers. No, a lot of American YouTubers watch football, like AFL, through the internet and stuff, and they react to it, and that it's quite an industry in a way, its own way. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they then will like decided to branch out into indie games that feature Australian rules. Plus, let's be honest, it's not even really the footy part of it that's important. It's the bash part.
It's the bashing, yeah. So I'm interested to see how it goes, though. It's definitely an interesting case. I don't think after talking to him, I think then they're going away from sports games. I think they've had enough of sports games. So, but maybe if Footy Bash is successful,
I don't blame them.
Yeah. Because I think they wanted some support from the AFL, and they wouldn't give them anything, and so then they had to be really careful not to put the right colours.
Sorry, that eye roll was at AFL, because I'm not bloody surprised in the slightest.
Yeah, and so it would have been super easy if they could just get some link up there, but I don't think they wanted to associate it with it. There is a lot of blood and guts in this game too when you bash people up. So maybe they didn't. They're trying to not bring back the good old days of sport.
Yeah, I was going to say that's. I think when I was writing about it, I said something that it was like the AFL of the 90s,
When you used to be
where
able to bash people.
yeah, where there was like a sports and brawl in the middle of the sports. You just stopped the game for a fight. It was great. It was very entertaining. Not so good for the footballers.
No,
A lot of them have had a lot of issues
maybe.
now that they're passing away.
And their noses look a little bit different to when they were born, potentially. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was good for the spectacle of the sport. So
Oh yeah.
yeah. So I mean, the game's really cool for that part, though. Yeah. We don't see many indie sports games actually. That's probably something we could touch on is indie sports games. And
I think it's just because everyone knows like FIFA and FPS and they all just play those. Or is it PES? I don't know, the other soccer game, I can't remember its name, its initials. It was really popular for a while. It's like the Japanese one. I don't.
yeah. Well, was that the one that was competing with FIFA?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that was more.
So I wonder if they just decided that a lot of the indies have decided that that's a market that's already covered. So there's no point kind of stepping in there. Whereas I think the only company that makes AFL games is Big Ant,
Okay.
which is a Australian studio, but they make it for, I don't know who they actually make it for, but they make it for one of the bigger companies.
Okay. But yeah, because I think what kids like about sports games is playing their favorite player in the sports game. Like if it's some guy from the AFL or some guy from the NRL, some guy from the baseball, whatever it is. And
They want to play the big names.
yeah, and
if you don't have that sponsorship or that association, you can't.
yeah. But yeah, like I'd like to see a remake of California Dreams or something like that. That would be pretty fun. Back when that's an old game, but yeah.
That's all right. I was thinking of World Soccer Championship, which was, I think, the original NES, the original Nintendo Entertainment System, is one of their games. And part of the reason I really liked that game as a kid was because you could knock out other players.
So you are a Footy Bash fan. So you will be getting Footy Bash. So did they give you t-shirts and stuff? When they came, I told my wife to go and tell them that their game was crap. So she walked down to their booth and said their game was crap, and then they gave her heaps of merch. So now I have to put up with seeing Footy Bash stuff every day.
I think they gave me one of the squashy footballs, which
Yeah.
I gave to my mum because she had broken her wrist about 2 years ago. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I gave that to her to help her strengthen her wrist, except it was far too hard, so she couldn't actually squish it at all. They also gave me a pair of socks, but my feet like to destroy socks, so I ended up giving them to a friend because I was like, I don't want them to be destroyed.
Makes sense. But yeah, so yeah, that's where my Footy Bash experience lies. That we keep on taunting each other, and I gave their kids heaps of merch, so they've got all Light Hayes World stuff at home. I imagine it's perfect.
Did you tell the kids to put stickers on like the back of doors and stuff? So every time, like when he opens the fridge, there's just a bloody sticker there, looking in the face.
Yeah, that's the game plan. You try and do that to all. You give a kid stuff. If you go to these conventions, you give it to kids, and then they go and put it somewhere and annoy their parents. It's funny. So especially if their parents are game developers.
I feel like the parents are like, no, it's not. It's really not.
Yeah, so I think it's funny. How about we just save some of our good stuff for next time we do this crazy podcast? Have you got anything else?
I'm sure I'll have more farming games. Because I'll have played more.
Probably. I don't know Well, I'm going to play something between now and then. I don't know what that'll be, but I'll think of something.
I think it'll just depend what gets thrown my way. As very that's kind of how it is.
Yeah.
They just often they just go, "Who wants to cover this?" And usually, if it's an Australian indie, I'll put my hand up. I think I did. Ross was one of the first games I covered for reviewed for Player 2. And then I also did Every Hue of You, both of which I had seen at PAX and was interested in.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
I was like, yes. Because it just seemed like a lot of the people that they probably didn't know about it because they're probably not as like insane about indies as I am. So they're probably like, I don't even know what that is. I'm like, yes, I played it. I mean, yes, I've seen it. I know what it is, and I'm happy to cover it.
There's going to be so many people at PAX this year again. Like, I think there's probably another 50 booths. There's normally about 50. Was there 50 last year? But
I didn't count. I was too busy handing out cards and running all over the place like a nutcase.
yeah, well, I think maybe about that many. So that's a lot of games if you go there. Do you ever go to the packs on the Steam store when you get home because they've got like the little link up there which makes it easy to find the games again? Or you forget about that?
I think I'm trying to remember. Often when I come back from PAX, I'm so dead that I don't even go on the computer. It's usually just food, bed. It's
Oh, from an indie developer point of view, you go home and go, "Oh, look, my game's on Steam in the thing that they're showing it to everyone." So you get
everyone can see it.
Everyone can see it. We almost get a million wish lists today, and it doesn't happen, but it's exciting now.
It's usually the Monday after that I will start like emailing dev companies and might use that to try and figure out because I will use everything at my disposal to try and reach out to any games that I may have missed while I was at PAX as well. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out. Some are like, oh, game's not far enough along. Some of them you speak to some of the people from university and you speak to them and they're like, I don't even know what a press kit is. I say, do you have a press kit so I can make a video? And they're like, what? What is that? I don't know what that is. And then they'll like tell me a little bit about their game, and I'm like, will there be resources for me to be able to make a video about it so that I can show other people your game? And they're just like, let me repeat my spiel so that I'm just like, okay, I'm just not getting through to these people. I'll move along.
Oh, I remember you were like one of the first people that contacted me about a press kit. So then I went and made one because I'm like, oh, maybe people do ask us little indie guys, do we have a press kit? And so I thought, and now I've got in the habit of kind of updating it or adding more stuff to it over time. And so it's just a little bit freshened up.
Yeah, it's always useful to have it if you ever need it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's better to have it and not need it than to not have it and then need it.
Yeah. Oh,
And I've seen some pretty terrible press kits where it's literally just a link to a website that has nothing on it, and it's like, I can't work with this.
A Google Drive. I've just got on my website a link to my Google Drive that's got the press kit. So
yeah, I think if I remember right, one of the people who asked me about what a press kit was and I had to explain to them what it was, I'd actually seen another company had used, or another dev had used something that was like, had like a template and you just like add the stuff to it.
Mm-hmm.
So people who didn't really know how to do their first press kit, they had all that, and I actually sent that to them and said, this will help you with your press kit. You'll have more of an idea of what you need just by following this.
Maybe that's your next job, making press kits for indies.
They're already out there. You just got to find them.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's like a press kit template,
but
and it's easy enough to find.
It's like the one thing that indie developers don't want to do is make a press kit. It's like, ugh, I'm making a game and you want me to make a press kit? Can't you just get your own damn pictures? Like that's how game developers are. They're just lazy.
I mean, we can get our own damn pictures. You just have to give us the game.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, nah. Oh well. Until next time, we'll do this again. Thanks for coming.
That's all right.
All right, bye.
Bye.